Lisa Marie Presley breaks down in tears after shocking new DNA results reveal her true paternity. The tests not only challenge her connection to Priscilla Presley, but uncover a hidden chapter in Elvis's life. What she thought was family turns out to be a carefully guarded, music, secret spanning decades. The birth of a dynasty. The start of the illusion. Lisa Marie Presley was born on February 1, 1968, at Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. From the very beginning, she was more than a newborn. She was the princess of rock and roll, the only child of Elvis Presley, and the future face of a billion-dollar legacy. The world saw her as the natural heir to Graceland, the bridge between Elvis's legendary fame and the next generation. Newspapers celebrated her arrival. Magazines printed baby photos. It was more than a birth. It was a moment scripted for the cameras. Priscilla Presley, Elvis's wife at the time, was framed as the elegant, poised mother. She stood beside him in public appearances, holding Lisa in her arms like royalty. In interviews, she spoke of her love for Elvis and the miracle of their daughter. But behind that flawless image was a question that wouldn't surface for 40 years. The Presley mythology relied heavily on heritage, bloodline, and continuity. Lisa wasn't just a daughter. She was a symbol, a direct connection to the man who changed music forever. For decades, this belief shaped her identity, her relationships, music, and even her business decisions. Everything about Lisa's life was rooted in the belief that she was born of Elvis and Priscilla. As Lisa grew older, she began noticing inconsistencies, stories that didn't add up, timelines that felt off. It wasn't until a personal health scare in 2008 that the carefully constructed story began to fall apart. What began as a routine checkup would soon evolve into a discovery that shattered everything. "My life wasn't a lie. It was a performance," Lisa once confided to a close friend. Lisa was about to uncover the most painful truth of her life, the DNA test that changed everything. In 2008, Lisa Marie Presley was dealing with recurring fainting spells, heart palpitations, and unexplained fatigue. Doctors suggested she get tested for hereditary heart conditions, something not uncommon in the Presley bloodline. But when she submitted her blood sample to a private lab in Los Angeles, she had no idea what would return. The first red flag showed up in the mitochondrial DNA, which is exclusively passed down from mother to child. Lisa's markers did not match those of Priscilla Presley's known family line. Lisa demanded a retest. 3 different labs, one in California, another in Texas, and one overseas in Switzerland, ran full analyses. A 0.0000% match in the genetic regions where a mother-daughter relationship should have been absolute. Music. Statistically, there was no biological link between Lisa and Priscilla. For Lisa, the news was more than a shock. It was a breakdown of reality. Her entire world had been built on being Elvis and Priscilla's daughter. And now, science was telling her that half of that equation might be a lie. She didn't believe it at first. How could she? But science doesn't lie. She reread the reports, called the labs herself, even asked for in-person consultations. Check it again. This can't be real. But each conversation confirmed the same brutal truth. Priscilla Presley was not her biological mother. The numbers aren't just numbers. One geneticist told her, "They're your story, whether you like it or not." Digging through paper trails and sealed files. After the DNA results confirmed that Priscilla Presley wasn't her biological mother, Lisa Marie didn't stop at shock. She needed answers, not just numbers on a lab report. That's when she turned her attention to what should have been the most basic part of her identity, her birth records. What she found instead was a trail of confusion, sealed documents that only deepened the mystery. Lisa began requesting archival records from Baptist Memorial Hospital, the place where she had always been told she was born. But what arrived wasn't clarity. It was a box full of redactions and inconsistencies. The hospital's admission logs for February 1, the day of her birth, had multiple blank entries. And most unsettling of all, one form closely resembled adoption paperwork rather than a traditional birth certificate. That document, signed just 2 days after Lisa's supposed birth, was not what any normal birth record should have looked like. Instead of a clear declaration of parentage, it read more like a legal transaction. There were no hospital stamps, no doctor's name, and no clear maternal detail. When she asked about these irregularities, she was met with silence or legal stonewalling. Lisa started comparing early family photos and began noticing things she hadn't questioned before. Friends she confided in said she spent hours late at night piecing together timelines and writing in a private journal. She scribbled questions like, why sealed files? Why lies in 1968? What is Priscilla hiding? shocking. Lisa also revisited old media interviews and noticed something she had overlooked. Music. In various appearances, Priscilla had given conflicting stories about Lisa's birth. One time saying she was born in the early morning, another time saying she was born in the late afternoon, claiming it happened late at night. More than just paperwork and photos, it was the emotional betrayal that began to eat at her. If these records had been hidden, it meant someone close to her had worked to conceal the truth. Whether it was Priscilla, Elvis, or someone else in the Presley circle, Lisa felt like her life had been orchestrated by people she trusted most. Everything I thought I knew about myself is suddenly up for debate, she reportedly told a confidant. But one mystery soon gave way to another. If Priscilla wasn't her biological mother, then who was? That question took Lisa down a new path, one that led directly into the heart of Graceland in the late 1960s. One name began to appear again and again, but had since been erased from Presley history. Enter Lucy Dearbanel, the shadow mother figure. Lisa's private investigation took a turn when the name Lucy Dearbanel began surfacing in old records, photographs, and journal entries. Lucy wasn't just a stranger. She had been a staff assistant at Graceland in the late 1960s. Hired during a period when Elvis was frequently recording in Nashville and making films in Hollywood, Lucy lived on the property and reportedly developed a close bond with both Elvis and the household staff. But what stood out most to Lisa wasn't Lucy's job, it was the timing of her disappearance. Lucy's employment abruptly ended in March 1970, just 2 years after Lisa was born. After that, she virtually vanished from the public record. No interviews, no press, no forwarding address. Lisa discovered old photographs from 1967 that showed Lucy attending Graceland gatherings. These weren't just coincidences, music, they were puzzle pieces. And the more Lisa dug, the more she became convinced that Lucy was not a footnote, but a key figure in her story. The real breakthrough came when Lisa obtained handwritten journal entries that once belonged to Lucy. Lucy wrote about carrying a burden of love and protecting him from ruin. She tracked down relatives of Lucy still living in New Jersey and asked them to submit DNA samples. The results were shocking, a 98.7% probability of maternal connection. Unlike the flat 0% from Priscilla's side, this was undeniable. And more importantly, why was Lucy erased? Lisa began to understand that her entire public identity had been a carefully constructed image. Lucy's role, whatever it had been, had to be removed to maintain the fairy tale of Elvis and Priscilla as the perfect American couple. And now Lisa couldn't help but ask, did her father know the truth all along? Elvis's role, architect or bystander? The deeper Lisa went, the harder it became to believe that Elvis Presley had been completely in the dark. She started looking at timelines, letters, receipts, and anything that might place Elvis in the center of the story. And what she found began to paint a haunting possibility. Not just that he knew, but that he might have been the one to orchestrate the cover-up. Elvis married Priscilla on May 1, 1967. Lisa was born exactly 9 months later. For years, this timing had been framed as romantic, but now it felt strategic. Lisa began to suspect that her parents' marriage may have been more about optics than love. She found financial documents showing that Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, had been making payments to Lucy beginning in mid-1967. These payments were labeled personal support. On the surface, it might have looked like employee compensation, but in context, it seemed like hush money. Lisa uncovered a scrap of paper dated January 1968, just 1 month before her birth. It read less like a song lyric and more like a mission statement, an acknowledgement that something big was happening behind closed doors. Lisa later told a close friend, as the evidence mounted, it became harder for Lisa to see her father as just a bystander. If he had known the truth, then every birthday, music, every interview, every family photo had been built on a lie. Whether he did it out of love, fear, or brand preservation, the result was the same. Lisa had been raised in a false reality. And yet, music, even with Elvis gone, one person remained who could answer everything. The woman Lisa had called mom for nearly 5 decades, which led to the final confrontation, Priscilla Presley, and the moment of truth Lisa had feared for years. Priscilla Presley, keeper of secrets or unwitting participant. In 2017, nearly a decade after the initial DNA test shattered her understanding of who she was, Lisa Marie Presley confronted the one person who could either confirm the truth, Priscilla Presley. The meeting happened inside a private suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel, music, far from the public eye. Lisa had come armed with the evidence, genetic test results, hospital records, and pages from Lucy Dearbanel's journals. The weight of music, decades pressed into a single painful painful question, "Are you really my mother?" Priscilla didn't deny it, but she didn't confirm it either. According to one insider present during the aftermath, her response was cryptic and emotional. "You're my daughter in every way that matters." The words were vague enough to protect her, but they did little to comfort Lisa. To her, it sounded like someone evading a confession, not offering a truth. This wasn't the first time Lisa had sensed inconsistencies. She had already gone back through old interviews Priscilla had given over the years. In one from the late 1970s, Priscilla described Lisa's birth as happening late at night. In another, she said it was early morning. These weren't just slips. They felt like fabricated details, music, as if she was reciting someone else's memory. When reporters asked Priscilla about the rumors in 2018, she refused to comment. Her legal team issued a generic statement, "This is a private family matter," but the silence only made things worse. Was Priscilla a victim of Elvis's decisions, or was she part of the machine that had turned Lisa into a symbol of legacy rather than a daughter raised with truth? Lisa's emotional health deteriorated. Friends said she became increasingly volatile, torn between resentment and heartbreak. The woman she had trusted most seemed to be protecting something or someone at the expense of her identity. She felt like she had been cast in a lifelong role without ever knowing the real script. "If she didn't lie to me," Lisa reportedly said to a confidant, "then she's hiding something even worse." Lisa had exhausted every possible avenue, and still she didn't have a clear answer. The truth remained buried under decades of loyalty, fear, and silence. If Priscilla wouldn't tell her, Lisa knew she had to make the next move alone, and it would be the boldest and most painful decision of her life, walking away from everything the Presley name represented. This leads directly into the moment that shocked both fans and family: Lisa cutting all ties to Graceland and the legacy that had once defined her. The moment of severance. Lisa Marie cuts ties. Snorts. By 2020, Lisa Marie Presley had made her decision. After years of secrecy, confrontation, and internal torment, she withdrew through silent, deliberate action. She stopped attending Graceland anniversaries and removed herself from all official Presley events. Music. For someone raised as the face of Elvis's legacy, her withdrawal was nothing short of revolutionary. Behind closed doors, she began the legal process of detaching herself from Presley Enterprises, the corporate entity responsible for managing Elvis's image, royalties, and tourism empire. Her legal team filed motions to separate her image rights, that she no longer wanted to be the figurehead of something she no longer believed in. Lisa wasn't running from her father. She was breaking from the myth built around him. She unfollowed official Presley accounts and made it clear she was done performing the role of Elvis's daughter. When People magazine inquired about her absence from recent events, she offered a single powerful line: "Truth matters more than bloodlines or branding." It was a quiet rebellion, but its echo was deafening. Lisa's decision wasn't about money. It was about identity. She began releasing music under just Lisa Marie, dropping the Presley name. Friends close to her said she had an entire unreleased album that she refused to market through traditional Presley channels. She had even started writing a memoir, an unfiltered account of her life and the lies she had lived in for over 50 years. "I was born into a legacy I didn't choose. Now I'm choosing me," she reportedly wrote in a draft. What made the decision even more significant was what it meant legally. Lisa was the sole heir to Graceland. Her name wasn't just symbolic, it was contractual. Her silence became a problem for the very empire she once represented. But Lisa's break was short-lived. On January 12, 2023, the world learned that Lisa Marie Presley had died suddenly at just 54 years old. The news was heartbreaking, but for those who knew what she had uncovered in her final years, it was also terrifying. With her gone, who would speak for the truth she uncovered, and what would happen to the legacy she tried so hard to escape? The answers would come quickly in the form of lawsuits, court battles, and a power struggle that would threaten to unravel the entire Presley dynasty. The fallout at Graceland was only just beginning. Death, fallout, and reverberations through the dynasty. Lisa Marie Presley's sudden death on January 12, 2023, sent shockwaves through the world. But behind the mourning came immediate chaos, because Lisa wasn't just a grieving daughter or a reluctant public figure. She was the sole legal heir to Elvis Presley's estate, a $500+ million empire anchored by Graceland, merchandising rights, and massive tourism revenue. With her gone, the Presley dynasty was thrown into disarray. For 3 decades, Lisa had held control over Elvis Presley Enterprises. She had made all major decisions surrounding licensing, branding, and how her father's image was used. But her quiet withdrawal from the brand over the years had left no clear plan for what would happen if she passed. In the weeks weeks following her death, court filings began to reveal what many feared. No one knew who was truly in control. A will surfaced naming her daughter, Riley Keough, as the primary heir, but challenges emerged almost instantly. Distant Presley relatives and former business partners began raising questions about Lisa's legitimacy. If the DNA revelations about Priscilla were true, some argued Lisa may have never been Elvis's legal heir at all. If she wasn't Priscilla's biological child, did that void her inheritance? These claims may have sounded outrageous to outsiders, but in the legal world, they had weight. Multiple lawsuits were filed throughout 2023, alleging fraud, concealment, and improper documentation in Lisa's 1968 birth. Others sought to halt Riley's appointment as heir until full genetic and estate reviews could be completed. Some even pushed for a full audit of Presley Enterprises, believing Lisa's break from the brand, music, had been based on concealed knowledge that could harm the estate's legitimacy. While the courts wrestled with succession, Graceland itself became the eye of the storm. As thousands of fans arrived for candlelight vigils, estate managers were quietly dealing with internal collapse. Without Lisa's signature, certain financial transactions were frozen, licensing deals stalled, and perhaps most damaging of all, the public narrative was changing. Lisa was no longer seen as the daughter upholding her father's legacy. She was becoming the woman who challenged its very foundation. Meanwhile, tabloids and media outlets circled the story with renewed intensity. Leaked legal documents, emails, and court motions began to confirm that Lisa had privately distanced herself from Presley Enterprises long before her death. And with that revelation, fans around the world began to ask the question no one wanted to face. What if everything we believed about the Presley family was a lie? That question would spill into public discourse, fueling debates that would take the scandal far beyond entertainment headlines. Cultural, ethical, music, and psychological implications. As the Presley legal battles unfolded, something bigger began to happen. The Lisa Marie paternity scandal wasn't just a celebrity story anymore. It became a cultural flashpoint. People were no longer asking if Lisa was Elvis's daughter. They were asking what happens when the truth contradicts the myth. Ethicists began appearing on major news networks, questioning how society balances science with family history. If Lisa Marie had found peace with her real mother being someone else, why did the system still hinge so much on genetics and perception? And more importantly, how many other families, famous or not, were hiding secrets under the surface? For adoption rights advocates, Lisa became an accidental symbol. Her story exposed just how much power family myths can have, especially in high-profile legacies where image control is everything. Behind the Presley brand was a young woman who had spent her life living out a story someone else had written, only to find out it wasn't hers at all. Psychologists weighed in, too, describing Lisa's unraveling as a textbook case of identity trauma, when someone learns the truth too late and everything they know collapses. On social media, battle lines were drawn, and accusations flew over who was honoring Lisa's truth and who was disrespecting her legacy. Hashtags like #DNA deception and music, #Presley candle trended on platforms like Twitter and TikTok. What had once united Elvis fans for generations was now dividing them. This isn't just a Presley problem, one CNN commentator said. This is a human problem. What happens when everything you thought about your family turns out to be a carefully managed lie? And as the world argued, one truth remained unshakable. Lisa Marie was gone, and the questions she left behind were louder than ever. The unanswered questions, what we may never know. Even after all the DNA tests, documents, and confrontations, Lisa Marie Presley died without publicly confirming what she knew. The mystery surrounding her birth and her true maternal lineage was never resolved on the record. Privately, she told friends she believed Lucy Dearbanel was her biological mother, but Lisa never released a public statement or filed legal claims to rewrite her birth certificate. Legal experts close to the family speculated about confidential settlements in the early 2020s. These alleged deals may have involved financial arrangements in exchange for non-disclosure, meant to protect the estate from music collapse if the truth ever got out. Others say Lisa simply couldn't bear to destroy the image of her father. Even after all she had discovered, she still spoke about Elvis with reverence. Her songs often carried lyrics about love, loss, and being misunderstood, emotional landscapes that hinted at someone grappling with deep inner conflict. She wanted the truth, but she didn't want to torch the past. The truth she chased might have always been meant for herself, not the world. As for Priscilla, she has never made a definitive statement. In her final public remarks after Lisa's death, she spoke only of her grief. She never addressed the DNA, music, findings. She never commented on Lucy. She never confirmed nor denied anything. Whether she is protecting herself, Elvis's legacy, or something even deeper, only she knows. If she carried the truth, she may now carry it to the grave. Lisa's unpublished memoir remains, Music, the last hope for answers. According to Riley Keough, the manuscript contains details my mother didn't feel ready to share. Whether the book will confirm Lucy's identity or expose a cover-up spanning decades is unknown. Lisa Marie Presley spent her final years not as a Presley, but as a woman chasing a stolen identity. She died with questions still echoing. Who was her real mother? Did Elvis know? What if everything she had lived through had been based on a decision made in silence, never meant to be uncovered? In the end, Lisa's legacy isn't just about grace and/or gold records. Music, it's about one woman's fight for truth in a family built on illusion. A woman who refused to live under someone else's story, no matter how famous that story was. Lisa Marie Presley spent her life in the shadow of a legend, only to discover that even her identity was part of the performance. In the end, the truth she uncovered came at a heartbreaking cost. Her story leaves behind one haunting question: how do you live when your past was never real?